5 years ago, in November of 2016, I posted a video titled, "Let's Try Cookie Clicker." The video is private now because, well, it's not very good. But when I was looking back at it, I got an idea. Why not bring the concept back, but make it better with an actual structured show? And so, here we are now. Welcome to First Impressions, the series where I play the first part of a game and then judge it based on that. Today, we'll be taking a look at OneShot, the game with the funny lightbulb cat. This is the first episode of this series, so I'll be defining the format a lot more than in future episodes. Without further ado, let's jump into it. Before we start playing, we'll be looking at the Steam page for the game. Since lots of people buy games through Steam, checking out the Steam page can be the hook people need to get them interested. So before I play, I'll be looking at any info I can get on the Steam page. OneShot is a game developed by FutureCat and released in December of 2016. It's described as a surreal puzzle game with unique mechanics and capabilities. It also says it has a unique relationship between the game and its player, and a lingering feeling that you're not getting the full story unless you know where to look. Oh good, and it's safe to close the game window. Crucially, the game has a content warning, that while it is not a horror game in the traditional sense, parts of the game may induce paranoia. Post-editing Will here. There's nothing in this video that felt especially paranoia-inducing, so this video should be fine. The game has overwhelmingly positive user reviews, which is always a good sign. Also, game journalists seem to like it too, but let's be honest, who cares what game journalists think? One final thing I noticed was that on the Steam page, some specific letters were bolded. The first letters that are bolded are the link to the game's website, and then seemingly random letters throughout the About This Game section. Putting this together, we get www.oneshotgame.com/solstice, which definitely seems important, but I won't be looking at in this video for fear of spoilers. All in all, the Steam page looks very promising. I'm a bit of a gamer, if I do say so myself, so for most of the games covered on this show, I'll have at least a little bit of background knowledge. The games on this show will all be ones that I'm mostly blind on, but I can't guarantee full blindness for all of them. For this game, my prior knowledge is fairly small. I've avoided any major spoilers, and I barely know what the game is about. My only real previous interaction with it was a video showcasing the first 20 minutes of the game, which I watched several years ago and barely remember. Judging by everything I've seen so far, I would assume this game is going to be similar to a game like Undertale. I anticipate it will pull a lot of weird meta shenanigans and play around with my ideas of what RPGs usually do. I love games that do this, so I'm excited to see how it goes. On HowLongToBeat.com, the game's main story is listed as taking about 4.5 hours. In this series, I'll be aiming to play between 10 to 25% of a game's main story to get a feel for it. For OneShot, I'll be playing the game for 1 hour to get my impressions on it. So, let's get started playing the game. One day, the game's protagonist Nico wakes up in a strange house that they don't recognize. They go through the house, solving some puzzles and eventually turning on a computer that talks directly to you, the player, about guiding Nico through the world and having them restore its son. Then, a Windows pop-up appears saying that you only have one shot with your real name. Yes, this game pulls from your username on your computer and addresses you by it within the first 10 minutes. This is some serious Undertale stuff. You help Nico leave the house, finding a light bulb along the way with the description, "It's the sun." When Nico leaves, they see a dark, barren landscape with a massive tower far away. Exploring a bit, Nico finds Prophetbot, who tells Nico that they are the Messiah. Nico is tasked with putting the light bulb at the top of the giant tower at the center of the world to bring the world back to life. They also learn that they have the ability to communicate directly with a god. Can you guess who the god is? If you guessed C, you're correct. Give yourself a pat on the back. Throughout the game, Nico will talk to you and you can give them advice on what to do, which is a fun way of explaining your control over Nico's movement. You also have various heart-to-hearts with Nico, which gives you a much better sense of them being a real character. Anyway, you make Nico walk around the Barrens with the goal of getting them closer to the tower. As you walk, you find Silver, the one tamed robot left in the Barrens. In the time that I played, I didn't get an exact definition on what a tamed robot was, but it seems to be a robot that's imbued with some higher level of sentience than the normal ones, and the ability to complete more complex tasks than just one single process. Silver believes that the sun won't restore the world perfectly, but rather just give it a second chance. Apparently, the world had been in decay even before the previous sun died out, so maybe this whole thing will be pointless after all. Cool. At one point, Nico goes into this funny building and asks if he can take a nap on the bed. And then... yeah, sure. The game closed. Of course the game closed. Why wouldn't the game close? When you reopen the game, you see into Nico's dream, with them standing in a field of grain with a bright glowing sun. You talk with each other for a while about how neither of you are actually from this world. As it turns out, there's a lot of similarities between the world that Nico comes from and real-life Earth. They're not the same place though, since Nico does seem confused at the name Earth. After that, you build a battery and power up this place with another computer. It does a little more talking to you directly, even having the audacity to tell you to look for a document that exists outside of the game to get a code for a safe. So you look at your documents folder, and sure enough, there's a new text file there with some glitched text and a code. Nico opens the safe, gets a gas mask, goes through this poison gas area, and makes a fun makeshift acid bottle. After getting absolutely trolled by me in this scene, I feel a little bad about that one, honestly. Nico also gets a pair of rubber gloves and a sponge, which they use to scrub the rust off of this boat robot. The robot says that it can move, but it doesn't have directions to the next area where Nico needs to go. We take Nico back to see Silver, who gives Nico a black clover amulet that came from where Nico needs to go. She seems to struggle with parting with the amulet, but decides that she'll give it away for the greater good. Nico takes the amulet to the robot, who traces its origin location and takes Nico to the next area. This is about where I ended my playtime for this video. All in all, the bits of story I saw were very well written. While the basic premise of the in-game story is fairly standard, world in danger, hero has to save it with a MacGuffin, normal RPG stuff, the meta plot that's going on is very intriguing. Both Nico and you are not from this world. And while we know that you got linked to it through the game, we don't know how Nico got there, and Nico doesn't seem to know either. The characters are all charming and well written, even the minor ones that are only on screen for a few lines of dialogue. The world feels very real, and the use of meta tactics works wonders to immerse the player deeper into the story. The mystery of what exactly is communicating to you through these computers definitely made me want to learn more about the game. This feels very much like the type of story I'd get sucked into and obsess over for a while. Good stuff. There's not much to say about the gameplay of OneShot. It's a pretty standard top-down RPG. You move around the world, inspect objects, and talk to NPCs to advance the story. I don't think I have to explain this that much. The puzzles are interesting since you have to have the right item when you interact with something to trigger the puzzle working. This is made even more interesting when you add the ability to combine items in your inventory. This style of gameplay is somewhat reminiscent of classic point-and-click adventure games, and it works really well. The biggest problem I have with it is that I'm god-awful at puzzles, so most of my gameplay looked like this. Brute force does technically work, but it's not especially fun. The other fun gimmick comes in the form of the metagame. Stuff like looking in my documents folder to find a code, looking in the game's files to see a weird application of a black clover that I'm sure will be important at some point, or the game changing my wallpaper to the solution for a puzzle. This is always a really interesting mechanic, and I love how it's executed here. It creates this sense of unease and mystery that really sets the tone of the game. Plus, it's just fun rooting around in your folders for the key to solving a puzzle. I wish there were more games that did this sort of thing. OneShot uses a pixel art style, which is very common in a lot of indie games, to the point where the pixel art indie Earthbound-inspired RPG is a joke. OneShot's overworld pixel art is fairly standard. I think it works well with the premise of the game, but I don't find it particularly special. What I did find special was OneShot's beautifully made pixel art CG sequences, like the title screen or Nico waking up. These CGs are stunning, and every time a new one appeared, it just filled me with this sense of wonder to be exploring further into this world. The characters are designed well in general, although some are definitely stronger than others. In particular, I think Nico is a wonderfully designed protagonist. The soft browns and blues of their clothes contrasted with the bright yellow of their eyes and the light bulb they carry is a great parallel to the game's world, being fairly dark with a glimmer of hope in it. Also, Nico is just adorable, and I just want to protect this absolute baby from harm. He's so baby, I love him, ah! So I had a problem here where I realized that in order to talk honestly about music, I'd have to actually know anything about music, which I kinda don't. So, like any good content creator, I made someone else do the work for me. Seriously though, thank you so much to Iglitterfun for helping me with this analysis. I couldn't have done this part without his help. Go check out his music, it's linked in the description, and it's really good. Okay, thank you. OneShot's music seems to tend toward fairly somber or mysterious ambient tracks. The heavy use of reverb adds a lot to this feeling of loneliness, which was definitely a major theme throughout my experience in the story. They usually have a bass line that stays fairly stagnant and droning, providing a dark, almost worrying undertone. Then, on top of the bass, fairly bright instruments like bells and other percussion instruments are used to add a sense of hope, wonder, and curiosity, mirroring how Nico's appearance in this desolate world brings a sense of hope and a possibility for change. Notably, the songs that have the least usage of bells and bright instruments are the title screen music and the song that plays in the abandoned house before Nico picks up the sun. It's very likely that this was intentional, giving the sun its own sort of theme instrument to make the musical tone change along with the story. This game's music works very well to set the tone, and even before I got help with the actual analysis, I knew that there was something special about the music of this game. It works perfectly within the game to set a mood, and is a treat to listen to even outside of the game. Also, I love the little play on words in the title, My Burden is Light, because, get it? My burden is light as in it's not a heavy burden, but also my burden is light as in my burden is literally the source of all light. I just thought that was cool. Good job, OneShot designers. I think OneShot is a very good game experience, if a little slow at times. The music and art are well made, and the story is interesting enough to hook anyone in. I'd rate this game's first impressions, this gif of Nico doing the caramel dance out of 10. Hell yes, I have to know what happens next. Of course I'm gonna keep playing. I need to make sure Nico is okay. I'm gonna go do that now. Hey, thank you so much for watching this video. It's different from what I would normally do, and there's gonna be more of this sort of series in the future. I hope you like it, because if you don't, that would be awkward. Oh, I want to give a big shout out to all my patrons over on Patreon, because I have a Patreon now, and people are paying me money. So their names are on the screen now, and they're really cool people, and you too can pay me money to do this YouTube thing and get your name on the screen. And you also get cool exclusive updates and stuff, so go check it out. Also, the Discord server. Go look at the Discord server. No one's in the Discord. Please go look at it. See ya.